Are you curious about the 6-2 profile and what this little fraction looking number means for you? Well, don't worry, you're in the right place because by the end of this video, you'll get the answers to the following questions. What is the 6-2 profile? What are the characteristics of the 6-2 profile? What's the public role and leadership style of the 6-2? And what are the keys to health and happiness for the 6-2? We'll even go over a couple of examples of famous 6-2s so that you can see how this is played out in real life. So if you enjoy this video and want to continue to learn and deepen your understanding of human design, I'd be so grateful if you could show some support by hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel. Hey everyone, and welcome back. My name is Crystal Alfarero. I'm founder of the Human Design Academy, and I help people like yourselves understand their unique energetic blueprint through the human design system. Profiles and lines in human design have grown to be one of my favorite things to dive into and talk about because there's just so much insight that you can get from this particular aspect of your design, from your approach to life, to how you think and learn, to your life path, to even your bonding strategy, and so much more. It's also known to represent your public role and really the costume that you wear in this lifetime. So I'm going to be doing a series on all 12 of the profiles to help you learn a little bit more about yourself or your loved ones. In this video, we'll be looking at the 6-2 profile, which I honestly feel to be like the old souls of the 12 archetypes, and they have the potential to be one of the naturally wisest types. My daughter has a 6-2 profile, and I can definitely say she seems so much more mature and conscious than I was at her age. So if you're ready to explore more, let's just dive in. So what is a 6-2 profile? Well, the 6-2 profile is the role model hermit, and these are people who can come across as being wise beyond their years. And like I mentioned, these are the old souls. And in general, they tend to have a very deep understanding of the world compared to some of the other types because of their reflective and observing nature, which gives them this capacity to learn from their many, many experiences. They're seen by others as naturally gifted in something which isn't always obvious to them unless it's pointed out, and they're designed to be called out by others for these particular gifts and talents. And while they may not consciously be aware of their gifts and talents as a hermit, the way they actually see themselves will depend on what stage of life that they're in. And their particular path, this trajectory that they're on, starts off with a little bit of chaos and has the potential to lead them into becoming a wise role model for others. So to understand why, we're gonna go ahead and break down the components of the 6-2 profile. So what does a 6-2 profile consist of? Well, the 6-2 profile consists of the conscious line 6 role model and the unconscious line 2 hermit, which come together to create this role model hermit profile. And just to give you a little recap, each of the 6 lines of the hexagram have a specific frequency or flavor, and it's in this unique combination that the profile is created. The 6-2 profile is also one of the 4 transpersonal profiles, which means that they have a life theme that's focused on helping others, so guiding and helping others, and they also have this transpersonal karma that they're here to clean up. In the 6-2 profile, the 6th line is the role model archetype, and this represents their conscious personality, their mind, and how they think, how they see themselves, because this is the number on the top part of the fraction, which represents their conscious personality. So this side of their nature, again, is conscious to them. They have conscious access to this, and you can also think of the role model kind of like that wise Buddha archetype, and this is a part of them that goes through this unique 3-stage life process, where in the first 30 years of their life until the end of their Saturn return, it's experienced similar to a line 3 martyr, through going through that trial and error process, learning through trial and error, bumping into things, and then it goes into the 2nd stage, which involves taking a step back to look at the big picture, to reflect and integrate all these lessons that they've learned from that first stage. And finally, all of this leads into them evolving into this great role model who's here to share wisdom with others in that 3rd stage of their life at around 50 years old or at the time of their Chiron return. The 2nd line is the hermit archetype, which represents the unconscious design, the body, and their physical experience because it's on the bottom part of this fraction. So this is really what represents that unconscious design. So this part of their nature is not something that they have access to. It may not be something that they're even conscious of, but it's that automatic script that just moves them without conscious awareness to it. So this hermit side is the naturally gifted side. They tend to be more relaxed and introverted, and this is the part of them that just kind of wants to be left alone to do their own thing. Your profile is something that you grow into. So it said that in theory, the needs of the conscious line often need to be fulfilled first in order to live out the highest expression of their unconscious line. So in the case of a 6-2 throughout their lifetime, this is really all about being wise about which experiences are good for you to jump into, and also about giving yourself the time and space you need to integrate your lessons, to go into your hermit mode, so that you can, get the wisdom that you need from those experiences and externalize this wisdom as you move into that third stage of your life. But at the end of the day, obviously these two sides kind of work together, and really the way that you'll live out the highest potential of this profile is simply by following your personal strategy and authority. So what are some characteristics of the conscious 6 line in this profile? Well, like I mentioned earlier, the conscious line 6 has a unique 3-stage life process that eventually prepares them to evolve into a role model for others. Again, it's a potential. So for the first 30 years, in other words, that first stage of their life, it's lived like a line 3 martyr. And this is, again, constantly sampling and learning through trial and error. And the purpose of this period is to gather the life experiences that they need, because as they move into that second stage from around the ages of 30 to 50, it becomes a time of reflection and observation. In human design, we use the analogy of being in the kitchen and experimenting with that first stage to climbing up on the roof in the second stage to get a bigger picture and a bigger vantage point, to really just look around and review the first 30 years of their life. So this period is that time for them to heal and to reflect and transform their experiences into wisdom that can be shared with others. And by the age of 50, they bloom into their full potential as a role model for others. So this is when they come back off the roof and reintegrate with everyone else. This is really where they reach the peak of their greatness and share all the wisdom that they've gained throughout the years. It really becomes a time to use that wisdom to experience life in a new, more wise way. And in their highest expression, they really do evolve into becoming this inspirational role model for others. However, in a lower expression of the 6th line, it can kind of look like someone who's just bored and just impulsively jumping into things in the first stage, or in the later stages, it might even look like being pessimistic and distant and detached from reality, especially if they haven't taken the time to integrate and heal from those previous experiences and learn from those previous experiences, because they're here to model what it's like to live our truth and live our authenticity in this world, which is going to be based in that self-awareness and self-acceptance. But in order to get there, it really is important for them to, come on the roof, so to speak, and just take that time to reflect and heal. So what are the characteristics of the unconscious line 2 of their profile? So the line 2, or the hermit side of them, is unconscious. So people tend to see their gifts and talents way before they even realize it themselves, way before they even recognize it themselves. Sometimes they don't even, because this is the unconscious part of their nature. There's an introverted or antisocial part of this hermit line that tends to want to keep to themselves and do their own thing. But the thing is, they can never stay hiding for too long, because they live in somewhat of a projection field where they're noticed by others for their talent. So you can think of the first floor of a house, people are looking in through that window, all the lights are on, and they're just kind of doing their thing, and people can see right inside and see what's happening. And eventually they become called out by others to share these gifts and talents. Because they're naturally gifted, they often don't even know how they know these things. They just kind of do it, and they can sometimes even get anxious if they're expected to explain how they do what they do, or how you can do it, how other people can do it. So if you are a line 2, or if you are a 6-2 and you're in any kind of teaching capacity and you find that you struggle with this, it might be helpful to just simply show what you do rather than try to explain things. So show, not tell. And again, they're very happy to just sit home and just do their own thing. They're meant to be called out by others to apply what they do naturally. They don't need to go out there and investigate and do all these things and try to prove what they know. They just have to apply these gifts and talents when they're called out, whatever that talent or gift might be. So if you have a line 2, maybe reflect and ask yourself what others are constantly calling you out for, what they're asking you to participate in or help them with. And this is how you get to discover what your gifts are, especially if you're a projector and you find it difficult to see yourself. One of the ways that you're also meant to learn, or I guess the way that you're going to discover your gifts, is by just, again, observing and seeing and reflecting on what people are asking you for. In the low expression of the line 2, this can be someone who isolates themselves and might be doubtful in their own ability to fulfill any calls or requests from others to share their gifts. So again, being able to follow your personal strategy and authority is so important for you to discern which of these calls to engage in, which ones to enter. Otherwise, it can be really, really exhausting and unfulfilling. So it's when 6-2s accept the right calls, this is what leads them to the most fulfillment and satisfaction in the process. They'll be led to the right circumstances and the right people and feel more confident in these particular environments, which gives them the fuel that they need to actually live out the projections that they're here to fulfill. And ultimately, this is what leads them to the most fulfillment and satisfaction in the process. So if you have a 6-2 profile, let me know down in the comments how your experience is with your profile. Next, what's the public role and leadership style of the 6-2 profile? Well, ultimately, 6-2s are here to be natural leaders. This is the role they play, and they lead as what we call democratic administrators, the Democrat being the leadership style of the line 2, which is the ability to take the lead, or really the ability to lead by taking into consideration the needs of the majority, and also the administrator being the leadership style of the line 6, which is the ability to share and allocate power, and most importantly, to lead by example. In other words, 6-2s are here to become a unique, capable, and wise authority for those who are seeking out their particular set of gifts. They're here to be visionaries who externalize the wisdom that they've gathered, share that wisdom that they've gathered with others, and really share this for the benefit of others. Next, what's the key to health and happiness for 6-2s? Well, for 6-2s to thrive, first of all, it's very important for them to be guided by their strategy and authority in order to discern which callings and experiences are correct for them to invest their energy into, which can save them a lot of regret and exhaustion and just unnecessary stress. They're seen by others as someone who's trustworthy and full of value and can sometimes feel obligated to help everyone that comes to them. So this can leave them feeling exhausted and burnt out by the demands of other people. So again, strategy and authority is how you become aware of these boundaries that you need to set for yourself. And this is how you open up that path of least resistance. Secondly, it's important for them to stay true to their own processes as a hermit and really give themselves permission to just immerse themselves into the things that they love, do the things that they love to do, be by themselves when they need to be by themselves, and wait for the right calling for their gifts to be shared with others. And last but not least, who are some famous 6-2s? Well, we have Barack Obama, who's a 6-2 emotional projector, and we have Elton John, who's a 6-2 sacral manifesting generator. And we can see in both of these cases, you have two people who are both talented and gifted and who were called out by others to share their gifts throughout their careers. And they also grew into becoming an influential role model in their own respects at around the age of 50. So in the later parts of their life. With Obama, he started out as a civil rights attorney and then was initiated into politics when he was elected into the Illinois Senate in 1996. And he was recognized for his unique perspectives and insights and down-to-earth nature, and also his magnetic speaking abilities. He was just 2 years shy of his 50th birthday when he became the president of the United States in 2009 and began to live out his path as a role model, especially being the first Black president in the history of US. With Elton John, his gift was music. So his calling was music. And he was called out to perform from a very, very young age. He had a lot of musical success in his early years, but where he struggled was being open about his sexuality for a very long time. He was engaged to his first girlfriend, Linda Woodrow, in 1969, but then ended the relationship around 2 weeks before their wedding. And he then came out as bisexual not too long after. So it wasn't until 1992, just 5 years shy of his 50th birthday, that he officially came out as gay and went on to become an LGBTQ advocate and icon for people around the world, which didn't happen until nearly the second half of his life. So in that third stage. And you can see how this process kind of plays out for both of them, even though they have totally different paths. They're just naturally talented in their own respects, naturally gifted, called out for those things throughout their career, throughout their lifetime. And then it wasn't until those later phases that they really stepped in and shined in their own respects as icons, as role models, as inspirational role models. So we've now come to the end of this video, but if you're wanting to get that extra help to help you understand your profile and also get a holistic overview of this aspect in the context of your whole chart, I do offer one-to-one human design readings that include a 90-minute Zoom call, plus you get a customized 30-page blueprint for your own learning and reflection. That is a great resource guide to always come back to. So I'll leave all of that information and a link for you in the description down below. And this brings me to the end of this episode where we answered the following questions. What is a 6-2 profile? What are the characteristics of the 6-2 profile? What's the public role and leadership style of the 6-2? What are the keys to health and happiness for the 6-2 profile? And we also went over 2 examples of famous 6-2s. So if you enjoyed this video, I'd be so grateful if you could show me some love, hit that like button, and subscribe to continue learning more about the wonderful, insightful human design system. So with that said, have an amazing day or evening wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.